Hey, horror enthusiasts. Welcome to A Quick Note, the channel where we dive into the spine-chilling tales that keep us up at night. Today, we're exploring the bone-chilling origins of Sadako and Samara, those terrifying figures from the Ring series. We'll uncover the real-life stories and ghostly inspirations that gave life to these haunting characters. But before we unravel the mystery, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our dark and twisted explorations. Now, let's get ready to unravel the horror. Back in 2002, there was this spooky movie that gave everyone the creeps. It was about a little girl named Sadako who crawled out of a well and did some pretty scary stuff to people who watched her cursed videotape. The movie was called The Ring, and it was a Hollywood version of a popular Japanese film called Ringu from 1998. After The Ring, there was a whole bunch of other scary movies like The Grudge in 2004 and One Missed Call in 2008, all inspired by Japanese horror. These movies made Western folks pay attention to Japan's cool ghosts and folklore. Now, if you're a fan of Japanese horror, you might know that Ringu was based on a book by Koji Suzuki from 1991. But what many people don't realize is that the spooky girl in the well story has some historical roots. Just to keep things clear, we'll call the creepy girl Sadako, that's her Japanese name when we're talking about the original book and film. So, let's dive into the spooky history behind Sadako and the well. The ghost in Japanese folklore, and the creation of an onryo. In Japanese beliefs, people have something called a recon, which is like a soul or spirit. When someone passes away, their recon leaves their body and hangs out in purgatory until they get a proper funeral, and some post-funeral rituals. After all that is done, the recon is free to leave purgatory and chill with their ancestors. But what if the funeral stuff doesn't happen? Or if someone dies in a violent or not so happy way, like murder, suicide, or with lots of bad feelings? Well, in those cases, the recon transforms into a yurei, kind of like a Western ghost. This yurei can bounce between purgatory and the real world. The yurei gets stuck haunting a place until the right funeral stuff is done or until they sort out their intense and unfinished business. It's like they're waiting for closure before they can move on from being a spooky ghost. So, that's the deal with the yurei in Japanese beliefs. Yurei is like a big ghost family in Japan, and each type of ghost has its own category based on how the person died or who they were in life. Let's take a peek at a few examples. Yugyume is the ghost of a mom who passed away giving birth, Funi Yurei is the ghost of someone who died at sea, and Zoshiki Warashi is the ghost of a child. Now, for our spooky friends Sadako and Samara, they fall into the onryo category. Onryo ghosts are like the Avengers of the afterlife. They were seriously wronged during their time on Earth and now they're back as vengeful spirits. These ghosts can actually harm or even kill the living. Typically, onryo ghosts are women who went through some heavy stuff in life and want payback after death. Remember Kayako Saiki from the Ju-on/The Grudge series? She's another onryo. Her creepy groans and death rattle came from her husband breaking her neck, and now she's out for revenge. In super intense cases, onryo are said to cause natural disasters like earthquakes, storms and famine. So, onryo ghosts are not to be messed with, they've got some serious haunting power going on. In the original novel, Sadako faces a horrific fate. She is assaulted by a doctor who has smallpox, and then, tragically, she meets her end after being thrown into a well. In the Japanese movie Ringu, Sadako's stepfather, Ikoma, is the one who throws her down the well. Now, in the American version, The Ring, things take a dark turn too. Samara, the character based on Sadako, is suffocated with a garbage bag by her adopted mother, who heartbreakingly tosses her into the well, sealing her fate. These twisted and haunting backstories, with their different layers of abuse and tragedy across various adaptations, create the perfect recipe for the onryo, a vengeful spirit seeking retribution. The mix of these distressing pasts sets the stage for a chilling and vengeful supernatural presence. Himeji Castle, home of the original Sadako. Up on a hill in Japan's Hyogo Prefecture, you'll find the stunning Himeji Castle, which has more to it than just a pretty facade. This castle is like a living history book, originally built in 1333 as a fort and then revamped into the grand structure we see today between 1601 and 1609. With a whopping 83 buildings and sprawling across 576 acres, it proudly holds the title of the largest castle in Japan. This castle isn't just a pretty face, it's got some serious defense mojo going on. From moats to tricky mazes, Himeji Castle is a fortress with over 1,000 loopholes for archers and a clever setup for pouring boiling oil on unwelcome guests. No wonder it earned a spot as Japan's first UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1993. Now, with a castle this old and grand, you'd almost expect a ghost story or two, right? Well, Himeji Castle doesn't disappoint. The most famous tale whispers about a woman who met her tragic end at the bottom of a well. Sound familiar? It's like the spooky inspiration for the tragic plot we see in Ringu. Ghosts and castles, it's like they go hand in hand. The origin of Sadako. A highlight at Himeji Castle, apart from the castle itself, is Okiku's Well, the stage for the dramatic ending of a notorious Japanese ghost story, known as a kaiden. The tale unfolds with a woman named Okiku, who worked as a servant at Himeji Castle for a samurai named Tessen Aoyama. Aoyama was head over heels for Okiku and even proposed marriage once he parted ways with his wife. The catch. Okiku already had her own lover and wasn't interested in Aoyama's romantic pursuits, which seriously ticked off the samurai. Among Okiku's tasks was to safeguard the family's 10 precious plates. Seeking revenge, Aoyama played a nasty trick on Okiku, making her believe she had lost one of the plates, a serious offense punishable by death. Devastated and terrified of facing execution, Okiku repeatedly counted the plates. Aoyama, seizing the opportunity, offered a deal. If Okiku agreed to marry him, he'd overlook the missing plate. However, Okiku stood firm in her refusal. In a fit of rage, Aoyama dragged her outside the castle and tossed her down the old well, leading to her tragic demise. This chilling story echoes through the centuries, drawing visitors to Okiku's Well at Himeji Castle. After Okiku met a tragic end, her ghost echoed through the well, counting plates from 1 to 9, only to let out a chilling scream upon realizing the 10th was missing, repeating this haunting ritual each night. Okiku would creep out of her well, appearing before Aoyama as he tried to sleep. The relentless counting and blood-curdling screams eventually pushed Aoyama into madness. In some versions, an exorcist was called in to deal with Okiku's restless spirit. Hidden nearby, the exorcist shouted 10 when Okiku finished counting in the well. Believing the missing plate had been found, Okiku finally found peace. Just like Sadako and Samara, Okiku became an onryo after her death, fueled by the brutality of her murder and the intense negative emotions she experienced before dying. These women, mistreated in life and meeting their demise in a well, clawed their way back to seek vengeance. It's a tale of revenge that echoes across different stories and cultures. Okiku's tragic tale has various versions, adding layers to the popular ghost story. One rendition comes from Bunraku or Ningyo Jorori, the traditional Japanese puppet theater. Another version is set in Edo, the historical name for Tokyo, during the 17th century. These different retellings offer unique perspectives on Okiku's sorrowful story. In some versions, Okiku takes her own life by leaping down the well, while in others, she becomes the victim of a cruel plot orchestrated by a jealous mistress. Regardless of the version, the common thread is Okiku enduring mistreatment without provocation, leading to her untimely demise at the bottom of the well. It's a haunting narrative that takes on different shades but consistently revolves around the tragic fate of Okiku. But what about the cursed videotape? Of course, Okiku didn't put a curse on a videotape hundreds of years ago. But there's a fascinating addition to Sadako's powers that stands out: thoughtography, also known as nensha. This concept emerged during the 19th century's fascination with spirit photography. Thoughtography claims the ability to imprint an image from a person's mind onto a photographic plate, almost like taking a picture but using your brain instead of a camera. In the case of Sadako and Samara, we see them demonstrate thoughtography by projecting their curses along with disturbing images onto the cursed videotape. The footage on the tape is supposed to capture the final images flashing in Sadako's mind before her death. For Samara, these images include memories like her mother's suicide, the chair from the institution, and the ladder to the loft she slept in at the barn. It's a spooky twist that connects the supernatural abilities of these characters to the intriguing concept of thoughtography. In 1910, Japan experienced a surge of interest in spiritualism, prompting Tomokichi Fukurai, Tokyo University's assistant professor of psychology, to conduct parapsychology experiments. Sadako's psychic abilities were inspired by Sadako Takahashi, a Japanese psychic who collaborated with Fukurai. Takahashi claimed to possess abilities like thoughtography, nensha, and other supernatural talents. Fukurai documented her alleged powers in his 1931 book, Clairvoyance and Thoughtography, which faced criticism due to a lack of scientific rigor. Fukurai also worked with another psychic, Chizuko Mifune. Despite initial ridicule from colleagues, Fukurai believed in Chizuko's powers. In April 1910, a test by Tokyo University President Yamakawa Kenjiro seemed to confirm Chizuko's ability to read messages inside sealed envelopes. However, when the test results were exposed as fraudulent, blame fell on Chizuko. Tragically, she took her own life just 4 months later on January 19, 1911. Chizuko is believed to be the inspiration for Sadako's mother, Shizuko Yamamura. Shizuko, too, faced public scrutiny over her alleged psychic abilities and, after enduring public ridicule, also ended her own life. Anchoring the origins of Samara and Sadako in a popular ghost story, The Lives of Real Historical Women adds a layer of reality to the horror. It introduces a human dimension to Sadako/Samara that might get overshadowed in the films because of how intensely terrifying she is. The narrative of a neglected young girl failed by authority figures and brutally murdered invites a perspective that leans towards a sense of redemption. Given the horrific circumstances she endured, can anyone truly blame her for embarking on a murderous rampage? It's a complex story that prompts us to consider the deeper, darker roots of the vengeful spirits we encounter in these chilling tales. And there you have it, folks. The haunting origins of Sadako and Samara, reminding us that horror often has its roots in the eerie corners of reality. If you enjoyed this spine-tingling journey, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe for more terrifying tales, and ring that bell to stay in the loop. Until next time, this is a quick note, signing off. Sweet dreams, or perhaps, haunting nightmares.